Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Today we are restoring the Stanley No. 1. Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. The Stanley No. 1. This is a collector's piece if ever I've seen one, and this one isn't in the greatest of shape. Broken tote, missing knob, paint spatters, Japanning in poor condition. Lots of little issues with it, but I think we can make something happen. I mean, just look how cute that little thing is. So this one doesn't actually belong to me. It belongs to a friend, and he wants me to take it back to number 1, usable, number 2, looking nice, but number 3, still keeping a little bit of the history to it. So we're going to try and keep the Japanning on, try and keep the patina on this. We're going to clean it off. We're going to do new Japanning on it, and we're going to put a new tote and get a new knob. But first thing is we have to take this all apart. Now, when taking these apart, you want to make sure that your screwdriver actually fits the bits, which you think, a flat bit and a flat head. Well, no, you want to actually make sure that your flat bit is the right size. You don't want any slop in there. You want it to move around. The next thing we want to do is once we get all the pieces apart, we're going to actually clean them and see what we're working with. And a toothbrush with some very, very light soap. I like to use carpet cleaner. It's a neutral surface, and it does a very, very good job of cleaning it out. Any of the main gunk, I'm going to be coming in with a light brass brush. It tends to work into things a good bit better, and I can get into some of those corners and really know what I'm looking at. Now, a lot of this, the Japanning isn't too bad, but some of it, it's caked down there. And then there was this paint spatter that was all over it. It was on the metal pieces as well as on the Japanning, and it just wasn't coming off. Decided to actually do the yoke as well, and so I had to take a punch to push that out. But with the brass brush and a good bit of vigorous application of it, we were actually able to take off all of the paint spatter. And it also cut through a lot of the deep grime on it. Particularly on the sides and base of this, it brought it down. It still kept the patina, but it got rid of any of the surface gunk that was on it. So I decided to redo the Japanning, and so in order to do that, you need to cut through it. I actually just use a paint stripper, and it takes quite a few coats of paint stripper to get through there. It was about 4 or 5 coats. You put it on there, you scrub it off, you put it on there, you scrub it off, you put it on there, you scrub it off. It took quite a bit, but slowly but surely it worked all the way through the Japanning, and we got it down pretty close to base metal. You can see scrubbing it off, you still see the Japanning on there, so then you put on another coat and you scrub it off. And it takes a while. There are better ways of taking off Japanning, but I didn't have any of those in the shop, and I had some paint strippers, so we decided to go with that. Now, I'm not going to talk about the actual Japanning itself. If you want to see that, I definitely go over to the Hand Tool Rescue. He has a video. It's about 45 minutes long, but it is like the seminal work on Japanning. Several different recipes, application times. Whenever I'm doing Japanning, I always go back and watch that video. I'll try and leave a link to it down below, but I'm following his recipe. It's boiled linseed oil, asphaltum, and gum, turpentine. I'm going to put it all in there, let it soak, put it in the pan, and then start baking it. You start off at 200 degrees. Actually, I think I started off 150 the first round, 200, then 250, then 300, and then finally 400 with an hour each coat. And then in between each coat, I let it fully cool down. So now we need to work on the tote, and the tote was broken off, and I want to actually glue on a new piece. But to do that, we need a flat surface to put on a new piece here. And I had several pieces of original rosewood that I thought would actually work out well, and I had this block sitting here which really matched closely in the color. And I thought, this is exactly what I want. So I printed out a pattern. I actually found a picture online and just scaled the picture to the exact size. And then I can put the tote on top of it and draw out what I want. And so I need to cut off a scrap of this rosewood and fit it into there. Originally, I was going to use an old tote from another Stanley plane, but after taking it apart, the tote wasn't actually rosewood, or it wasn't the same type of rosewood, because there are many different types of rosewood. And this one ended up being far more red than I was expecting, and I thought, well, I guess if I put it on there and put the finish on, it's going to get darker. In the end, it did not, and it was not as pleasing, so it didn't hide it quite as well. But you can still see it's there. With time, it will darken, and it will probably match up. But unfortunately, you can see how the middle is much redder. It was kind of unexpected. So we're going to then plane a flat, smooth surface on this at the exact same angle as the one that is on the existing tote. And I want to make sure that the two fit on there. So I can put it on there and make sure that the tote is vertical and adjust that angle until it fits nicely, as you can see it on there. And this block will then cover everything else in that pattern. For the glue, I'm going to use Total Boat High Performance. As long as the two surfaces are sanded with a little bit of a texture on there, this will hold on phenomenally. Plus, with the rosewood wood and the oiliness on it, it will glue very well. The problem is getting this all together for clamping. I'm actually going to use clamps to hold the side to keep the two pieces from sliding past each other. And this will then allow me to put a clamp all the way across from top to bottom and pull it all together. So I'm doing a dry fit up first. Always do a dry fit up, making sure it's what you want. And then you can go and apply it. It doesn't take much at all. It will squeeze out, and having the tape on either side is going to keep any of the squeeze out on there. You do want the squeeze out to fill any micro gaps that are in there, so it will hide the seam a little bit better. Speaking of which, let's go back to the stove. At the end of each batch, we're just going to open the oven and let it cool. Once it completely cools down, then we can put it up to the next temperature. Set it for an hour, and then come back. And so it goes through the whole cycle of these temperatures, and by the time you do the 400 cycle, it is done. So we're going to let it cool, and that's one coat. And I ended up putting 2 coats on this. Sometimes I'll put 3 coats, but for the small surface on this, I decided to keep it a little bit thinner, so we're only putting 2 coats of Japanning on there. And each coat then goes back into the oven and goes through that full cycle. For something small like this, it isn't that big of a pain, but if you do some of the bigger things, it can really make the house reek. It smells like turpentine throughout the entire house. While that finishes baking, we are going to then go back to the tote and take it apart, make sure everything came out just right, and continue on with what we want to do. So the next thing I need to do is actually transfer the lines from the pattern onto this, and I'm just going to put some rough lines on there about where I want to cut it off. This doesn't have to be terribly precise yet, I just want to stay a little ways away from it. We're going to take off the vast majority of this material. So to do that, we're going to clamp it up, and I find it easier to put a hand screw clamp in the vise and then put the work in the vise, and that gets it up a little bit higher, makes it easier to work on. It also is a smaller jaw, which makes it easier to work on some of these more detailed items. We're going to cut off the majority of the waste with a saw. Stay close to the line, but don't get too close. We can always come back and file it off. We just want to get it roughly to the right shape and then bring it over and check it, make sure that everything is the way we want it to be. Now we can actually then go into it and start filing and rasping and really doing some cleanup on here. You're going to start with some fairly heavy rasps. For the top here, the Shintukos work really well. Because you're working on a flat surface. I don't like them as much for rounded surfaces, but they do fairly well on these flat surfaces. But in this case, I needed to remove a lot more material, and so I'm going to be trying a couple different things. The more I've been trying these crescent floats or files, I've really been liking them. So those have been coming out fairly well. Sometimes it's actually easier to take the work to the file than the file to the work. You can get a little bit smoother action from time to time, but most of the time I'll take the file to the work. And so we want to feather this in and joint from one to the other, follow it and make it as smooth as possible. Taking off smaller amounts than what you're expecting is a better method. Using a finer and smoother file is far better. And then we can finish it off with a bow sander. And this allows you to get into all the nooks and crannies. I can put it up on a screw on a board, and this will keep it at a good working height so I can coat it. We're going to give this several coats of boiled linseed oil to give it its texture, and then once that has cured or gotten close to it, we're going to do shellac. And for that, I'm going to do a 2-pound mix, and so that is mixing it with denatured alcohol and the shellac and letting that goes on in a thinner coat. And that way you can get a better control of how it's being applied. If you put it on too thick, then it actually can cake up on you and it just doesn't look quite right. So we're going to do this thin coat by thin coat. Nice thing about the alcohol is that it evaporates very, very quickly, and so you can do, like every 20 minutes you do a new coat. So we're going to hit the iron. We want to sharpen that up and make sure it is good. Go through all the grits and then do it on the strop. Make sure it is exactly where we want it to be, and it's a nice sharp iron. We can start to put this whole thing together. Very, very pleasing. This is the point where things really start to get real. Want to be very careful putting this pin back in the yoke. hitting it very, very lightly. We don't want to break the casting on this, and I'm actually using my small plane adjustment hammer on this, so it's a very, very light connection. Slide the depth adjuster knob back in, and then we can attach the yoke down. There is no lateral adjuster on the number one. It's not just pre-lateral, but all of them do not have a lateral adjuster. There just isn't enough space. All of the screws, all of the hardware are smaller on the number one. It's almost like it's a model. Then we can fit the iron in, put down in the screw, make sure it's at the right depth, and that is the wrong screwdriver for that screw, but I didn't have another one at hand. And so being very, very careful not to do that. The knob, I actually found another one, and I was able to buy this one on eBay. It's not the exact one. You can see how it has a nickel coating on the knob as opposed to being a brass. I thought of trying to polish that off and getting down to the brass, but in the end decided to leave where it was. We're going to do a paste wax coat on this to finish it off. Set the paste wax on, let it harden, and then come back and buff it off, and you'll get the nice finish on there you're looking for. And then we can put this all in, screw it down, and start taking it for a test drive, making sure it all works, because you know this is a working plane, right? Yeah, the extension on the tote wasn't as happy seeing it the color change on there, but oh well, such is life. If I really wanted to, I could spend the time and try and find a replacement tote, but in this case, I'm very, very happy with how it came out. It isn't intended to look as good as new. It's intended to look sharp and functional, but still show the history behind it. And this one came out phenomenally well. Very, very happy with how it came out. And it's getting great shavings. I could get it down pretty darn thin, but I was very pleased with how this one came out. Still looks decent, still has that appeal, and happy. So there you have it, the Stanley No. 1. This is a tiny, tiny little plane and a lot of fun, incredibly collectible. And I know a lot of people are going to be saying, ooh, you took it too far, you really shouldn't do that to the Stanley No. 1. Well, this isn't actually mine, it actually belongs to someone else, and this is what he wanted done with it. And so we are actually taking this to the point where it doesn't look like new. It looks like it's still got some age, but it still looks like really, really clean. So putting that new Japanning on there, fixing the tote, just doing all those touch-ups to bring it back to a condition where it's usable, it's functional, and it looks sharp. And that's where we wanted to take this one to. Now there's some that I really would just want to clean up, get the dirt off of them, and set them aside. They're collector's pieces. And there's some that, you know, I would actually like to take it back to brand new, shine the whole thing up, and make it look very pretty. And in this case, I wanted to keep that little bit of patina on the side and keep some of the shape to it. I even left a little bit of the distressing on the tote to show its wear, but it is completely functional and a fully usable plane. So this was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it's not mine, so I have to ship it back to the person who owns it. But thank you for giving me the chance to work on it. You will be seeing a few videos coming out here soon where I'll be talking about the Stanley No. 1, what is it for, what's its history, as well as comparing it to other planes. So it'll be a fun one to show. So this was a pleasure to do and a lot of fun. One of these days I will get my own, and that will be a very, very happy day. So usually at this point I say let me know your ideas, questions, criticisms, snide remarks, let those all be down below, because I'm sure there'll be plenty of snide remarks. There are a lot of difficult things when it comes to the Stanley No. 1, a lot of very strong opinions. And that's one of the fun things about it, because there is no right or wrong way to do it. As long as it's safe, you know, it's your own plane. You can do what you want with it. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to all the patrons on Patreon, members here on the channel. People who've clicked that join button are the ones literally keeping this channel going. So thank you for that. If you'd like to find out more about that, there's a link down in the description to Patreon, or you can click the join button. And there are a bunch of perks and things like that I give to patrons and members that don't get given to anyone else. So if you ever see anyone scrolling over here on the side, tell them thank you, because they're the reason that the lights are on. Quite literally in this case. So that'll do it for now, and until next time, have a wonderful day. You know, if I ever went to a sporting event, I don't want one of those big foam fingers. I'm No. 1. I would actually take one of these and wave it in the air. That's a No. 1.